Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from
Byron.
an offender at the Eastern Reception and Diagnostic Center. You may start the conversation now.
This is A Mind Unconstrained. I'm Byron Case, an imprisoned writer and poet. I just entered my 25th year of a life sentence for a murder that I didn't commit. Prison can be tough, and it's primarily been writing that's sustained me over the past 2.5 decades. My creative nonfiction and poems have been published in magazines, literary journals, and anthologies. I started blogging from prison in 2007, but shuttered my blog last year to start a Substack, which you can find by visiting amindunconstrained.substack.com. Meanwhile, you found this podcast, which is my newest thing. A Mind Unconstrained is precisely what the title implies. Evidence that, in spite of my imprisonment, I still have absolute freedom of thought. The sentence of life without parole doesn't mean I have to live like a lifer. My mind's free to wander, and wander it does. Stick around, you'll see. This week I'll be reading an essay about time from the standpoint of a prisoner and through the lens of Buddhism. The subject is heavy and some of the language is dense, but I think I've made it comprehensible. I'm a philosopher by inclination, after all, not by formal training or education. Anyway, if this goes too deep into the weeds or just isn't your cup of tea, come back next week when I'll take a different tack. That's the thing about having an unconstrained mind. There's no telling what direction it'll go. So now, about time. The way the self arrays itself is the form of the entire world. See each thing in this entire world as a moment in time. Things do not hinder one another, just as moments do not hinder one another. The way-seeking mind arises in this moment. A way-seeking moment arises in this mind. It is the same with practice and with attaining the way. Thus, the self setting itself out in array sees itself. This is the understanding that the self is time. Zen Master Dogen from Shobogenzo. The 13th century meditation teacher Dogen believed that our lives are not simply a product of time, but co-equal to it. In his formulation, time is literally part of our being, an essential component of our makeup, as necessary as blood. To Dogen, selfhood is possible only because we remain in continual conversation, durationally, with the world. Humankind has existed for untold millennia and has conceptualized time's passage for at least a few thousand years. Yet, for all of our grand philosophies and literary endeavors, we have yet to define time in non-relative terms. What is a minute? An hour? Every reference to time, now, then, tomorrow, last year, Tuesday, 5:37 p.m., and so on, amounts to general pointing. Can it be any wonder, therefore, that we also lack a non-referential definition of self? Many have tried to think their way around this conundrum, but none have successfully described time without bringing into consideration the factor by which we measure it, space. If time can't exist without space, and if we are co-equal to time, then life without space is similarly negated. Consider now the prisoner. To be restrained by locked steel doors, chain-link fences, and razor wire is to feel oneself negated. To be confined to a cell measuring a few square feet, typically with one or more others, for years on end, one is necessarily placed in a position to reevaluate everything. Time in prison tends to dilate. Moments unravel in the musty silence of the midday head count. periods spent in the company of others become vaguely desperate intoxications. The self becomes unmoored. An opportunity for study arises, a koan, or a hell. Who am I without my home, my job, my wardrobe? Whether or not they recognize the question, let alone decide to face it, everyone is presented it when they enter prison. Serious students of Zen choose to undertake the study of self upon their leave-taking. The monastic life is arrived at deliberately, with one's eyes open. However, for the prisoner, this strain of inquiry develops less by choice than under duress. Most people's minds were clouded by intoxicants of one variety or another when the karma that brought them to prison was created. Like a hot iron ball, this truth is hard to swallow, but you can't spit it out. For me, coming to prison as a young man 25 years ago spurred an inward journey. The heavy cell door slammed shut, and my days stretched out. Months became unfathomable eons as, paradoxically, years blew away like leaves in autumn gusts. Humans only comprehend time's passage in relation to things we've experienced. We perceive getting older in relation to having clearly demarcated chunks of time that we can estimate have elapsed since we experienced other forms of events. In prison, these chunks are scarce. Understanding this referential method of perceiving is part and parcel of Buddhist practice. As Dogen's way-seeking mind arises, we have a choice: tamp it down or allow it to flourish. Prisoners who clear enough room have ample excuses to sit zazen and bear witness to time's passage. The vast gate of compassion stands wide, but entering it is difficult. In this place of profound suffering, where there are almost never not others' voices, that journey becomes especially hard. The armies of distraction, we might say, are thick among thieves. Discontentment presents itself upon simply waking. Prison's relentless succession of identical mornings inspires frequent references to Groundhog Day, the philosophically suggestive Bill Murray comedy from 1992. In the film, Murray plays a sarcastic TV news personality who reluctantly travels to cover a Groundhog Day festival in rural Pennsylvania. He soon finds himself trapped in a seemingly endless time loop, reliving every dissatisfying moment of the day again and again. Cold showers, people he dislikes, and that jangling Sonny and Cher song, I Got You, Babe. In my view, pop culture offers few better metaphors for cyclic existence. By adopting the perspective that time is something separate from ourselves, we doom ourselves to fighting an intangible, unstoppable foe. The Buddha taught that when things are viewed as being opposite one another, anger, confusion, and dishonesty are bound to arise. And so they do. In prison, as Phil does for much of Groundhog Day, most people seek to kill time. Prisoners' relationship with time is almost always adversarial. There's an old adage among the incarcerated, do your time, don't let your time do you. A well-meaning piece of advice that encapsulates the prisoner's dualistic, combative attitude toward time. Time looms as the enemy. The prison sentence must either be beaten in courts of appeals or survived through sheer endurance. What I've always found interesting is that the most common references to Groundhog Day cite it as a story of existential angst, despite its ultimate message of liberation and happiness. The movie actually holds up well as a metaphor for leaving samsara, life's seemingly ceaseless suffering. Weatherman Phil Connors, spoiler alert, doesn't become a Buddha, but slowly comes to realize his own power to change his life for the better. Practicing patience and selflessness and relinquishing his attachment to his former selfish ways ultimately leads Phil to freedom from the repetition. And the film ends as he discovers joy, finds love, and achieves something not very far from equanimity. And in much the same way as Groundhog Day's happy ending gets overlooked, we forget that prison is not merely where society isolates people who do bad things. It's also where great, auspicious rebirth can occur. As a synonym for serving a prison sentence, doing time is apt. It implies a person embodying what Dogen describes in Shobogenzo, being fully in and of time. Even though the experience of prison life isn't precisely of one's own choosing, it can be a rare gift. The offer of a kind of monasticism with a little renunciation and a home leaving thrown into the mix. It's not a perfect likeness to living in a monastery, of course. In prison, we're given 3 pairs of pants, 3 shirts, and 3 meals a day, which is more than most monks live with. We have games, sporting events, tablets, cable TV, and many unstructured hours at our disposal in which we can complain, gossip, brag, or sleep. Drugs are easily obtained, sexual gratifications available, high-stakes games of chance can be found, and violence, well, it's an everyday occurrence. The hard fact of prison life tacitly encouraged selfishness in facility residents, and every man for himself attitude that's antithetical to the development of enlightenment. In a monastery, everyone moves in harmony with one another. There's accord, and prison is the opposite. Virtually everyone here is at odds with everyone else. More yet are at odds with themselves. Peace is hard won. Yet, by finding the courage to practice in a spirit of radical acceptance, one can sit in a stillness that emanates from within. We can meet the external world's noise and chaos with calm. I've only ever engaged this contemplative practice in prison, and it is, ironically, only within these chain-link boundaries that I have approached true inner peace. The sentence handed down after my trial is one of indefinite duration, and it is in part a result of being consigned to a death by incarceration, life without the possibility of parole, that I found the Buddhist teachings. To attain a measure of ease after receiving such a sentence seems staggeringly unlikely, but I tell you with absolute confidence that it can be done. I regularly sit in placid contemplation amid the raucous shouts of card players, blaring loudspeaker announcements, foot traffic, and slamming steel doors. Of course, thoughts arrive when I'm sitting. Things like, oh no, my neighbor's whistling again. Or, why can't they use their inside voices? As with any other thought, these wishes for things to be otherwise just have to be acknowledged and let go of. Back to the breath, however many times it takes. Aspiring to find a place of pure silence in which to meditate is an unfulfillable dream. We have only this moment. We are only this moment. Time isn't just a medium in which we travel like fish in water. Each of us is the stream of temporality embodied. Through practice, we may come to intimately realize this. It requires only that we sit in observation, that we embody the moment. We can do this for years. We can do this for lifetimes. That's it for A Mind Unconstrained this week. I'm Byron Case. Thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard today, point your browser to amindunconstrained.substack.com and subscribe. You'll get a new post in your inbox every Wednesday. Until next time, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you be at ease.
The caller has hung up.